Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, the Hunter. Welcome back to the Baseball Head. I hope you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. So I was at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia on September 13th, and I was able to get there. I was able to get some tickets. A friend of mine bought tickets, and he treated me to this game, and the Mets won 11-3 against the Phillies. But the one thing that I noticed, which was very strange, was how obsessed the fans are with the Mets. Very obsessed with the Mets and very sort of acting like the Mets are their rivals. Now, I've been to plenty of Mets games when the Mets have played the Phillies. Many games at Shea Stadium, many games at Citi Field. I couldn't care less about what the Phillies are. I never looked at the Phillies as a rival. I always looked at the Braves as a rival, the Cardinals as a rival, the Cubs a rival. The Phillies, I never looked at them as that. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I never thought that way. But one of the other things I noticed when I was at the ballpark was the reaction that the Phillies fans have towards a particular player. Let's have some really good players on the team. Francisco Lindor is probably the best shortstop in the National League. Pete Alonso hit a big home run against the Brewers this past week. He's a star. But Brandon Nimmo, this is the one thing I noticed about Brandon. He's never made an all-star team. But the Philly fans absolutely despise him. He was booed louder at that game that I went to than any of the other players on the Mets. More than Francisco Lindor, more than Pete Alonso. And I realized, it's like, you know why? He's beaten them. He's beaten the Phillies like a drum since he's gotten to the majors. In fact, when I was sitting in the ballpark, he had a home run that night. He had a home run, I guess, as you know, on Game 2 in the 7th inning after the Phillies took the lead against the Mets, 3-3. I mean, they tied the game 3-3, and then Brandon hit a home run in the 7th inning. But they hate Brandon. Now, he had said something around the bases when he came to home plate. Now, what happens in between the lines, that's between the teams, okay? And what's weird is some fans, and I guess the Phillies fans, think that they are part of the play, that they're part of the interaction between the players. That's not necessarily how it works. Now, if this is from fan side, and some fans have gotten a little too crazy when it comes to Brandon Nimmo, and I would mention, I cannot emphasize enough to the Phillies fans, you better win the series. Because if you don't win the series and the Mets win this series, I will destroy the Phillies and their organization and their team. Not just for this year, but for stuff in the past. Stuff that goes back to 2007. So just understand, I will bring up a lot of skeletons that are in their closet, that are in that organization. So just understand, better beat the Mets. I don't want to have to do this. But if they win, I'm happy, and then I get to rip into the Phillies. And the Phillies fans will have to take it. But here we go. Headline from fan side. Phillies fans want to put Brandon Nimmo in danger for saying something to quote-unquote their dugout. Playoff baseball brings out the most competitive side of the players and fans. Sometimes the competitive side goes too far, as it did with the Philadelphia Phillies fans, who wanted to see Brandon Nimmo intentionally hit by a pitch. The conflict sparked in Game 2 after Nimmo hit a home run to give the New York Mets a lead. As he ran the bases, he directed words towards the Phillies dugout. We don't know what those words were, but we can guess they weren't the most friendly. This happens all the time. And I know that John Boy, the lip reader, I guess did a video on it on X or YouTube. Responses to the clip weren't exactly friendly either. The writer says, I wouldn't expect them to. Phillies fans are certainly within their rights to get mad at him for chirping. The problem comes from those calling for him to be hit because of it. Some Phillies fans call for Brandon Nimmo to get beamed. Quote, stick one in his ear, one Twitter user says. This is from a guy named Brian who doesn't put his picture up because he's a coward. He probably shoots off a lot of stuff. He's probably a kid. The one thing that was learned back in 2018 through my own research of X, what used to be Twitter, a lot of minors are on X. A lot of kids are on X. And a lot of them are anonymous. And this account might be a kid. writing stuff like this, trying to be, tough guy, doing it anonymously. doing it underneath his parents' noses. Now here's another guy, another award winner who's got a very generic picture of a ballpark. Says Beam. Next at bat, he hopefully gets one in the ribs. Came another reply. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being that way, but that seems to be the problem with the Phillies fans at this point. Rivalry is great and all, but if you're on social media or in the stands and calling for a player to be beat, you got to get your priorities straight. Throwing at players is low down, and it's just as likely to get one of your own injured when the inevitable retaliation comes. The best way to shut up Brandon Nimmo was take the lead and hand his team the loss. That's the route the Phillies tried to take instead of getting a pitcher ejected and potentially injuring an opponent. This doesn't usually happen. This sort of chirping back and forth, there isn't like a domino effect that happens during a playoff run. It usually happens during the season. If that stuff happens during the season, that means it's really bad blood. And if there is a replication of this, I mean, something that will happen the following year. I mean, if anything happens with Brandon, say the Mets win, or there's another situation that happens during his postseason, there'll be a ramification to it next season. This doesn't normally happen in postseason, by the way. After Nimmo's go-ahead run in the 7th, the Phillies got the lead back in the bottom of the 8th. Bryson Stott tripled to bring home Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos. The GT Realmuto had an insurance run by driving in Stott. Philly left the inning leading 6-4. Since they were playing the Miracle Mets, the insurance run was necessary. Mark Vandelis tied the game in the top of the 9th with a 2-run home run. Unfortunately, the Mets lost in a walk-off. But the Phillies got the revenge. Down knows what was said. It could have been anything, and it might not have been something that There's one thing about Brandon. He's one of the nicest guys in baseball. So if they were chirping, it probably had something to do that they probably started, and he just said something back at them. And I would mention, Brandon Nimmo's a nice guy, but he's a tough guy. That's the one thing we've noticed about him this year in particular. So, you let me know what you think about this video, of course. Please hit the subscribe button for the Baseball Head 2, and I'll see you later.